The moment a domesticated animal becomes the center of a digital attention system, something shifts that most people fail to recognize. It doesn't begin with humor, or novelty, or even curiosity. It begins with exposure. A chicken placed repeatedly in front of cameras, lights, unpredictable sound cues, and human behavioral reinforcement is not participating in entertainment. It is being subjected to a rapidly changing environmental stress model. And in survival science, unstable environments are the first variable that pushes any organism, human or animal, toward breakdown. The danger is subtle at first. Chickens are prey animals, biologically engineered over millions of years to detect threat from above, from sudden movement, from irregular sound patterns. Their nervous systems are tuned for survival in open, predator-rich environments. Now place that same organism into a controlled but unnatural setting where artificial lights flicker, microphones amplify noise, and human handlers repeatedly trigger reactions for engagement. The surface interpretation is harmless, a chicken reacting, moving, making sounds. But beneath that surface lies a cascade of physiological responses: elevated cortisol, disrupted circadian rhythm, increased heart rate variability, that signal stress accumulation. In survival conditions, stress is not just a feeling, it is a measurable degradation of system stability. The common misunderstanding is that domestication equals resilience. People assume that because chickens are farm animals, they can tolerate any human-imposed condition. This is incorrect. Domestication reduces certain survival instincts, but it does not eliminate biological limits. A chicken exposed to inconsistent light cycles, for example, experiences disruptions in melatonin production. This hormone regulates sleep, immune function, and metabolic processes. When lighting becomes irregular, bright exposure at night, sudden darkness during activity, the chicken's internal clock desynchronizes. In survival biology, circadian disruption is one of the earliest predictors of long-term system failure. It weakens immune response, reduces cognitive function even in animals, and increases susceptibility to disease. Hidden beneath the surface of this scenario is a principle rarely discussed outside agricultural science. Environmental predictability is more critical than environmental comfort. A chicken can survive in relatively harsh conditions if those conditions remain stable and predictable. However, even a comfortable environment becomes dangerous when it is unpredictable. The introduction of cameras, human interaction schedules, and repeated behavioral prompting creates a pattern of inconsistency. Feeding times may shift to match recording schedules. Noise levels spike unexpectedly. Handling frequency increases beyond natural tolerance. Each of these variables alone is manageable. Together, they create a compounded stress matrix. Empirical evidence from poultry science shows that stress in chickens directly affects not only behavior but also physiological output. Egg production declines under stress. Growth rates fluctuate. More critically, stress weakens the immune barrier, making the animal more vulnerable to pathogens that would otherwise be neutralized. In high-density farming environments, this is already a known risk. But in a single-animal scenario subjected to repeated external stimuli, the risk becomes less visible yet equally significant. The chicken may appear active, even responsive, but internally, its biological systems are operating under strain. From a survival standpoint, this is where the real implications begin. When an organism is pushed into chronic stress, it enters a state known as allostatic load. This is the cumulative burden of adapting to repeated stressors. In humans, this manifests as fatigue, reduced decision-making capacity, and eventual system collapse. In chickens, it manifests as erratic behavior, decreased appetite, and increased vulnerability. The critical point is that stress is not linear, it compounds. What begins as mild stimulation becomes, over time, a destabilizing force. The situation escalates further when human behavior adapts to the animal's reactions. If a chicken pecks at an object and receives attention, that behavior is reinforced. If it vocalizes and triggers a response, that too becomes reinforced. This creates a feedback loop where the animal is unintentionally trained to operate outside its natural behavioral range. In survival psychology, feedback loops are powerful drivers of instability. They amplify behaviors beyond their original function. The chicken is no longer responding to environmental cues for survival. It is responding to artificial cues for reinforcement. At this stage, the environment has shifted from passive to active manipulation. And manipulation, even when unintentional, introduces risk. The chicken's natural behaviors, scratching, pecking, resting, are replaced or modified by unnatural patterns. These patterns may seem harmless, even entertaining, but they disrupt the balance between energy expenditure and recovery. In survival systems, energy balance is critical. An organism that expends more energy responding to stimuli than it recovers through rest and nutrition will eventually decline. This transition marks a critical threshold. What began as a simple act of observation has evolved into an engineered environment with unpredictable variables. The chicken is no longer just an animal in a space. It is an organism navigating a fluctuating system designed around human attention cycles. And attention cycles, by nature, are inconsistent, demand-driven, and often intensified over time. The next phase introduces a deeper layer of risk, one that is not immediately visible but has far-reaching consequences. As the environment becomes more complex, the interaction between biological limits and technological interference begins to create failure points that are difficult to detect until they are already in motion.